I had Jim call me, and I said, well, they could come and speak at the meeting, let me know. And then they never let me know.
So she could have her dog there, keep her both there.
Okay, we all ready? All right. Let's first call to order. Tracy?
And roll call, Commissioner Bessler,
Here.
Mayor Cause,
Here.
Commissioner DeHassett,
Present.
Vice Mayor Magruder,
Here.
and Commissioner Sloat.
Present.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, before we start the meeting, I'd like to just bring everyone up to speed on a special town meeting that took place on January 30th, which was last Wednesday. Our town manager, Jamie Titcomb, after 3.5 years of great service to the town, is leaving us to go to Loxahatchee Grove. That'll be on March 18th, will be Jamie's final day, March 18th?
Well, first day out there, yes.
Yeah, first day out there. So in the meantime, at the special meeting, the commission voted to have Tracy Stevens, our town clerk, who has been doing a fabulous job, step in as the interim town manager during that time period, and then at the end of that time period, we'll take an evaluation of the situation. Okay? So congrats to Tracy. Okay. Additions, deletions, modification, and approval of agenda. Additions, deletions. There's a lot of people here. I assume you're here for the crosswalk towards the south end of A1A. So, so if the commission agrees, perhaps we could move that up to
3A?
3A, please.
fine.
And also, I would request that we remove agenda item number 8 from the agenda. We have more work to do on that before we hold the first reading of that ordinance.
Do we have consensus agreement on both items?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay.
I need a motion and a second
Yeah.
and a
You wanna make
vote
the
to
motion,
approve the agenda as amended.
I move that we accept the agenda as amended, moving item 17 to number 3A and deleting item number 8.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0 carries. Okay, Tracy, announcements?
Yes. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, February 18th in observance of President's Day. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on Monday, February 11th at 8:30 a.m. at Town Hall. And the next regular Town Commission meeting will be held on Monday, March 4th at 6 p.m. at Town Hall. The municipal election will be held on March 12th, 2019. There is one Town Commission seat open for a 3-year term and one Town Commission seat open for a 1-year term. Qualified candidates are Steve Cause, Susan Hurlbert, and John Lipscomb Jr. Charter amendment referendum questions will also be on the ballot. I also want to bring to your attention that we have printouts available for the public with the notice of election, the sample ballot, and the proposed town charter, showing how the town charter will be amended if the referendum questions pass on election day, and those handouts are on the table in the back of the room. The League of Women Voters will be holding a town commissioner candidates forum on Thursday, February 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Town Hall. Residents are invited to the forum and will have the opportunities to submit questions to the moderator. Residents who wish to add their name to the email blast list to receive important town notifications should sign up on the sheet provided on the counter in the lobby or notify the town clerk. And then one additional announcement, the town's contractor, Blue Iguana Pest Control, will be holding a resident informational workshop regarding iguana control at Town Hall on Tuesday, February 19th at 6 p.m. And there are flyers on the table in the back announcing that as well.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, so next on the agenda is public comment. We have 3 gentlemen from Boynton Beach who are running for a commission seat there this March, and each of them would like to address the residents of Ocean Ridge briefly for about 5 minutes each. Let's start with Malcolm Gropper.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Malcolm Gropper, and I am a candidate for the Boynton Beach City Commission, District 1. By way of introducing myself to you, let me give you a brief summary of my background. My career was primarily in the development and construction, marketing, and sale of planned residential communities. Two were in excess of 8,000 homes each. Most were around 3,000 homes. And I did that in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Illinois. And I say this to you because I also was an adjunct professor of real estate at FAU University. As I told my students, a developer is a dreamer. A dreamer, he sees a piece of land and has a vision for what it can be. And then he executes that vision. My vision of Federal Highway in Boynton Beach is nothing compared to what they are doing. I feel that they are in the process of developing a road through a canyon with high-rise and mid-rise buildings right at the sidewalk on both sides of the road. Now, why is this happening? Well, Boynton Beach is encouraging development, but I don't believe that the current commissioners have the ability to envision that which they are approving for construction and development. They can't imagine what it's going to look like. They are basically looking at a plan and being told by the city planner that this should be approved. I believe that I can bring to the city commission the ability to visualize in my own mind what they're proposing and perhaps effectuate change. I truly believe that Federal Highway in Boynton Beach should not be developed the way along the current path that they're going. And if you've had any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Malcolm. Okay, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Rick Majoras?
Close enough.
All right.
So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, and Boynton's neighbors in Ocean Ridge. My name is Rick Maharaj. Very close, by the way. Thank you. I am running for commission in Boynton's District 4. This seat was vacated when the former commissioner ran opposed for the State House. Let me briefly tell you about myself. 20-plus year resident in Boynton. I have a degree in aviation technology, and I'm also an FAA engineer. I am president and CEO of RM Logitech, a technology firm based in Boynton Beach, District 4 for the last 10 years. I'm also the chairman of the ambassadors for the Chamber of Commerce for Boynton Beach. Enough about me. I have prepared a very concise message to this commission, and hopefully I get my point across. I'm quite familiar with the concerns of Ocean Ridge regarding dense overdevelopment on the Federal Highway corridor and the intersecting corners of Wilbright Road, Ocean Avenue, and Boynton Beach Boulevard. The height of the buildings and the density approved by the current commission, Boynton Beach Commission, along with previous District 4 Commissioner Casella, are inappropriate and totally unreasonable. Ocean Ridge does not have any members on the Boynton Commission that are at all sensitive to your concerns. None. The current intent zoning in the locations I referenced need to be reversed, not only because of Ocean Ridge concerns, but of Boynton Beaches. The current, my main opponent is being propped up and supported by Joe Casella and Justin Katz, neither of whom have been sensitive to your concerns. Need I remind you of Riverwalk? No. Their chosen candidate will, at their direction and influence, continue to be a voice and a vote for intense overdevelopment. We don't want that. Through their connections with the development community and other special interests, Casella and Katz are making sure their unknown, ill-informed, and controllable candidate is well-funded. Bottom line, I need your economic support and moral support to get my message out to my district voters. I've sincerely told you what I believe needs to be done in relation to reversing the current zoning, which allows for over-intense overdevelopment in Boynton Beach. I ask for your help so I can help you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
In addition, I have some flyers. I can leave them with Ms.
Sure.
Stevens, if that's okay, and she could pass
And
them out.
if anybody would like to get involved in any of the candidates, they can go to Tracy afterwards or tomorrow, and she'll know how to get in touch with
I
these
thank this
candidates.
commission for your time.
Yeah. And Mike Fitzpatrick, is he here?
Yeah.
My name is Mike Fitzpatrick. I live at 175 Southwest 2nd Street, and that's 1.2 miles from here. I know that because when I was practicing for triathlons, I would start at this corner and run back to my house. And that was my route. I've been a lifetime resident. I just found a picture that I'm sending out to get that I sent out to get digitalized, and it shows me at 9 months on the beach here, walking in the surf with my mom. And I think that explains why I go to the dermatologist every 6 months now. I was commissioner for Boynton Beach in 2013 to 2016. I lost a runoff by 12 votes, making a runoff by 12 votes. And now 3 years later, I'm here. I'm a little older and hopefully wiser. But what's really important is I believe the residents of my district are a lot more wiser about the current city commissioner, so I hope to be working with you in a few months. Let's see, where was it? Oh, I have two issues that are mainly of interest to you. First of all, I am not in favor of sanctuary cities like my opponent. And secondly, again, I'm not for higher density along the intercoastal. I worked very hard on Riverwalk with Christine. We went up to see the Army Corps of Engineers together and spent 2 hours up there. I'm very close with the Boynton Intercoastal Group, BIG, which is the condos along the intercoastal south of Ocean Avenue. So I appreciate being here, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. All right, public comment, and just so everyone understands the procedures, if you get up to comment about something that is on the agenda, you cannot then get up and comment on it when that item comes up. So I don't know if that changes who wants to come up for public comment. We almost had it, Terry.
Terry Brown, Harbor Drive South. Actually, I was hoping that maybe Tracy could answer this question. This is pretty difficult to read if you picked up the flyer. Is it available in other fonts or size somewhere? Or?
I can make it available.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Okay. Oh.
Good evening. Jimmy McAndrew, 131 Island Drive, Ocean Ridge, Florida. I'm a resident of the state of Florida. And I just came to thank you. Thank you very much for the pilot program on iguana control. I think it's a good start. It's a small start. But, you know, how do they say about the acorn grows into the mighty oak? Who knows, right? But thank you very much. I'll attend the meeting. I'm here to help, and I'm delighted this has happened. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I can make a comment about the crosswalk?
But then you can't when the crosswalk's under
Okay,
discussion.
yeah, Joe Belmonte, 5572 North Ocean Boulevard, and I just want to make a comment about the crosswalk in case anybody leaves. But back in the old days, about 10 years ago, when my mother was 90 years old, to get across A1A to go up Fayette toward the beach, we used to take my 90-year-old mother and push her out into the road, and the cars would stop. Well,
Sounds like Paul Ryan.
did she make it to 92? Two things have happened since then.
He's still in the will?
One, my mother, now at 100 years old, says she will not be pushed around anymore by her children. And two, people began hanging out their windows and saying to me and pointing at their fingers at me, saying, adult abuse. You can't elder age people abuse them anymore. And so, okay, that happened. And here we are 10 years later, and that road is getting very, very dangerous. And I just want to say that the people at the Ocean Ridge Yacht Club that use that area to cross going over to Fayette, to the Fayette side or to the east side of A1A, that the people at the yacht club are getting old. And so it's almost like an accident waiting to happen. And then you have the people at Colonial Ridge who are already very old. I will leave before. And I just wanted to say, I think it's time for a crosswalk there for the safety of a lot of people having to use that and cross over. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, Tracy, will you read the consent agenda into the record, please?
Yes. Adopt the minutes of the regular town commission meeting of January 7th, 2019. Approval of poll workers for the March 12th, 2019 election, and a proclamation for the municipal election to be held on March 12th, 2019. And again, there is one town commission seat open for a 3-year term and one town commission seat open for a 1-year term. Qualified candidates are Steve Cos, Susan Hurlbert, and John Lipscomb Jr. Charter amendment referendum questions will also be on the ballot.
Okay, now per the adjustment to the agenda, we're now going to move to the crosswalk. And-
Steve, we just need a motion and a second
Oh,
for
I'm sorry,
the
you're right.
approval.
Do we hear a motion on the consent?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimous. Thank you, Tracy, for pointing that out. Okay, the crosswalk. Jamie, I think, leads this charge. No, Vice Mayor Magruder.
Well, if it's helpful, do you want me to just give a couple of housekeeping updates?
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Vice Mayor, or did you want to first preamble? Either way is fine.
I'll make a motion that we move to item 17, which is a crosswalk discussion, to item 3A.
No, that's already,
And-
that's already moved up, so you're
Okay,
good there.
and so let's open it up for
Okay.
discussion.
Just for getting everybody on the same page, we actually first entertained this issue of a crosswalk at the request of residents of Crown Colony. It came to us this past summer, of June or July, I forget the exact date. And at the time, we indicated that because a DOT study is required to create the metrics for traffic and pedestrian counts, et cetera, we would prefer as a town to wait till high season to do that study. That's where we are now, is we're ready to do a traffic and pedestrian study for the purpose of determining if the FDOT metrics are met for the basic installation of a pedestrian crosswalk. We believe that study would run in the vicinity of about $5,000 to gather all that, and we can give that to our own engineering firm, or we can give it to somebody else. We're prepared to initiate that right away. In addition to that, something that you need to consider is that under DOT standards, we can't just build a crosswalk to nowhere. We have to accommodate either a sidewalk, a landing pad, or some hardscape surface that gets people from the end of the regulation crosswalk to some other means of ingress or egress, a street, a sidewalk, a landing pad, something to get people somewhere so that we're not just literally dumping them into sod on the other side of the road. The attorney and I looked at a plat map this morning. I believe the location that is being proposed for the crosswalk, or the desired location, which is approximately mid-block coming off Crown Colony and would go across the street to very close proximity to Fayette Drive, would put people close to Fayette Drive, and I think the theory is then they would walk up Fayette Drive and proceed out the walkway that goes out to the beach crossover there. One potential issue there is that we believe that the walkway at Fayette Drive may be specifically dedicated to the residents and property owners of the, I think it's called Tropical Subdivision 1. I know I'm not getting that name exactly correct, but it is the subdivision that goes from A1A to Old Ocean, including that Fayette Drive property subdivision. So there's an issue that has to be explored, which might predicate some sort of neighborhood agreement to utilize that route. The next closest public thoroughfares are Beachway to the north or Tropical to the south. Those would be additional routes where pedestrians could be routed to get to beach crossovers. So these are all issues, just after we get the study to confirm the minimum traffic counts, we'll have to bring back a proposed project if you approve it tonight, or give us the direction to move forward, for a design build to configure the design of the crosswalk to not only take it across the street at Crown Colony, but what kind of infrastructure will be necessary to then route the pedestrians, the residents, to the closest available route to the beach, if that's the intended purpose.
And I don't know if I missed it, Jamie, but if the study is concluded and presented, and we feel it meets the parameters, my understanding is the DOT has they're the authority. They can reject the study, they can
They
reject
do
the
have the
conclusion.
ultimate authority, because we're crossing state right-of-way to do whatever we do. There are cases where sometimes that the numbers that you study in the traffic and pedestrian counts don't necessarily meet the threshold. Sometimes DOT will still bend a little on that if there are other mitigating factors. For example, senior citizens in the city where I work, we use that to approve a traffic light that didn't meet the numbers, but because we had older drivers coming out of there, there was a credit given for the additional count. So there are things like that that might come into play.
And disability, right?
And disability, things of that nature. The things that might work against ultimate success are the proximity to the Woolbright signalized intersection and established crosswalks, as well as traffic and pedestrian counts that are within that given proximity of the intersections, the driveways, the side streets, et cetera. So that's the part that will be determined from the study. And then if we're close to meeting those numbers, I think we can do a design build that would land the project. It would come back to you because it will certainly exceed the 10,000 threshold for manager's signatory approval, and it'll come back as a full project for you.
And if we do present the study or plan to DOT, do they have the right then to come back to us and agree with us that there is a danger here, but we want much more than just a crosswalk?
They can put whatever requirements they feel are necessary for safety and traversing their right-of-way.
All right.
That can include signage, it might include signalization, although that's kind of over the top, but it could happen. And then, of course, the infrastructure and the pathway of the entire design, not just the crossing of the DOT right-of-way.
Gotcha. Okay, so at this stage, we now go to public comment, and then after you guys have your comments, then the commission takes a motion, and at the end of the motion being seconded, then the commissioners discuss it. But once public comment ends, it ends. You can't go back in with the commission comment.
How you doing? I'm
Good.
Salem Mazeroff. I'm the president of Crown Colony. And about 11 years ago, my wife and I found this jewel by the sea, this absolutely beautiful place called Ocean Ridge that I tell people nobody knows where it is. And some people say they like it that way. In any case, when the realtor brought us to Crown Colony to buy something, and she said, "You're a block from the ocean," the first thing that we did is not look at the unit, okay? We went to the ocean. I wanted to see what it was like. And it was, you know, my dream and Rosalie's dream, we found our jewel. Now, 11 years later, okay, it's still a jewel. We love being here, okay? The issue, though, is the safety of myself, my wife, family that comes, friends, and all the other people that live in Crown Colony to get from the west end of A1A to the east end so we can proceed down Fayette. And just, I'm not correcting Jamie there, but we do have, Crown Colony has an easement right of way on that path that he had mentioned, okay? So it's in the docks. In any case, that's where we're at, where it is dangerous, as Joe from my neighbor next door to the yacht club indicated, for people to cross. Now, I'd like to sum it up. I'm going to read something that the treasurer of Crown Colony, my friend, 100% disabled Vietnam veteran, who unfortunately has had surgery, Ron Kern, and he's back in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I believe we have another fully disabled Vietnam guy here also. And I'd like to read what Ron asked me to say, and I think it sums it up, okay? Currently, residents from Crown Colony, Ocean Ridge Yacht Club have perilous time just crossing A1A, walking to the beach. This is challenging for healthy residents, but for those with mobility issues is outright dangerous. At Crown Colony, there are wheelchair-bound residents. We have someone who has been renting here for 2 years. He currently is buying a unit at Crown Colony. I believe he had a stroke. He's fully disabled. You could see him on our at the beach, or not on the beach, at our deck area all the time. He enjoys it. Okay, can imagine with a wheelchair trying to get across our intersection. All right, but these are wheelchair-bound residents, 100% disabled veterans, a large demographic of 75-year-olds and above, and many residents with other mobility issues. I mean, what we're waiting for is an accident to happen, okay? So I rest my case with as you could see, they canceled card games. This is the truth.
But isn't bingo still happening?
If their kids, if their grandchildren were being Christian, they would have had the card game. But they came. So you know how, and believe me, you know how much of a serious issue it is. So please, in all consideration, do something for us. Without your help, we're not going to get this crosswalk. I've tried to, call the state, so forth and so on. They're not responding, okay? To you guys, I believe they'll respond. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gary Lockman. I'm a resident of Ocean Ridge Yacht Club. I live at 5604 North Ocean Boulevard. I just want to make one little point. You've got almost 200 households between Crown Colony and Ocean Ridge Yacht Club. Human nature is people are going to take a shortcut if there is a shortcut, and we know there's a shortcut here. Every day people are crossing, and now that this is a matter of public record, it would be almost a case of indirect liability if we were unable to get a crosswalk in that location. Now that everybody's aware of it, the number of people. So it's really just a question of pinpointing an exact location to comply with all the view guidelines and a landing pad, as Jamie said, maybe a little stretch of sidewalk to connect to that landing pad, but it's basically a corridor from an existing sidewalk to a road. So it shouldn't be that complicated. So thank you, and I urge you all to support this.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Albert Serto. I own land here in Ocean Ridge. I also am a member at Crown Colony. And just to address the the private egress to the beach, there is a crosswalk in Delray just north of George Bush that is private to private, the private parking lot to the club. And I don't know the name of the club, it's like 925 Ocean, and it goes from their private parking lot to their private club. So that's just something to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. So,
One more.
My name's Dan Decker. I'm a resident of Crown Colony. And Mr. Tickton, you raised the question as to whether we had rights to the easement going from the end of Fayette to Ocean Boulevard, Old Ocean Boulevard. I was thinking about that this afternoon, and so I looked up some of these documents. And the 1952 document, which dedicates that easement to the residents of Tropical Park Subdivision Number 1. And in 1969, when the 99-year lease was made between Crown Colony and the owners of that property, it does specify that Crown Colony was part of Tropical Park Addition Number 1. So I think that makes it clear that Crown Colony does have the rights to that easement. Whether or not Ocean Ridge Yacht Club was part of Tropical Park Addition Number 1, I don't know, and I'm sure could find that out.
Yeah, I was referring to the fact that it was not clear on the plat map itself as to who had access or rights to it. The other gentleman that spoke about it being inclusive in other documents, that's good news for all of you. That question has also come through the town administration office as to whether Ocean Ridge Yacht Club enjoys the same access. I know you have a dedicated crossover up on the east end there. I don't know if that's inclusive of Ocean Ridge Yacht Club or not. That was built much later in the process.
Right.
So I don't know their status of, we would have to research that through the title attorney, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
So, Tracy, since this was a discussion, do we even need to have motion, or can we just go right to commission discussion and then consensus, if we want to move forward?
You can have a motion and a second, or you can have a consensus, but if you want to move forward, you have to have either or.
That's what I'm talking about. So we could just do the discussion, because originally it was just a discussion point, but now we've moved it into the agenda. Okay. Okay, why don't we do the discussion first, then?
Well, if you remember, we talked about this through the budget process, and we pretty much said we wanted to do it.
Yep.
So I think we should just do it.
I agree with Phil. I mean, the reason,
If Jamie will word the motion, I will be happy to make it.
I get to word it for you, Doug?
Yes, Lou.
I would suggest you might consider making a motion to support the initial funding to do the traffic studies and prep work to determine the design and configuration of installing a crosswalk somewhere in the proximity of Crown Colony to the Fayette area across A1A.
Excellent, I move so.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries
And
5-0.
just a housekeeping note, it will definitely come back to you, because if you decide to move forward, the costs of the full design build will be back in front of you.
That'll be quite a bit.
Correct.
Okay, everyone's welcome to stay.
I heard there was card games on.
Or you can get back to your card game.
Welcome.
Yeah. To everybody, yeah. We didn't expect
Kiss
it.
out.
We didn't either. Yeah. Kathy, can we just ask you your money information?
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. A lot of people feel like they're paying out for the So if you make a little joke and squirt on this thing, they all leave, because that's what they really want to do.
And they'll report on this process. Okay, and then you don't have to say anything because they asked there.
That's a good idea. What kind of board?
Yeah,
I know.
Close up the wall now.
Real.
Lynn's there, okay, good.
The one that went through and then the commissioners took over.
We'd like to invite those of you that are occupying the back rows, if you, plenty of seats up front, if you'd like to move up. Nobody's moving.
This is not church or temple. You can move right up. It's safe.
Okay. Let's go back to our regular agenda items. Town manager,
Yes,
Titcomb.
thank you, Mayor. I'll just cue this up, and I'm going to invite members of the Garden Club to come up and give you a brief explanation. We had sought your interest prior, and you gave us consensus to move forward on allowing the Garden Club to consider the erection of a Blue Star Memorial plaque in town. After working with them back and forth, and the organization working with their authoring organization, they have arrived at a place where they have the sign picked out and the location potentially picked out, and we just need your blessing. So I'll introduce Dr. Lynn Allison, who will give you the short and narrow on this.
Something I said. All right. Good evening, commissioners. First of all, I'm speaking on behalf of the Ocean Ridge Garden Club, and I wanted to first inform you that we have rejoined the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs Incorporated at our last meeting. This was actually necessary because the Blue Star marker cannot be put up or purchased without being a member of the Federation, to our surprise, because it's their markers. And they started doing it in 1941. So that was one of the initial reasons why we joined back again, and many others as well. So what we had to do was to determine the place where we wanted it. And our initial thought was that we have this lovely archway as you come into Town Hall, and the marker would look beautiful there because it's going to be about 7 feet once it's installed.
7 feet high.
No, well, it's kind of 3 feet go down, you know, into the ground, but it looks kind of like that. I think I had shown it at the last time. In any case,
You have a
we
picture
found out
back
that
too.
it's double sides, so the marker is on both sides. So we realized that, first of all, you could only see one side if we put it there, and also that it would only be seen by those people who come directly into Town Hall. So with Jamie's help, I don't know if you sent them the pictures of you standing there
He's
as the
standing there
marker.
acting like a sign.
Okay, so we used him as the marker, and Barbara Cook and I went out there, and we found that there were 2 places that would suit us very well. One of them with the flag behind looked really good, and the second was on the other side. So it would be on the front of the town hall, so if you're driving north or south, you'd be able to see both sides of it. We then, Barbara and I and our families, went to the American Legion for dinner on a Friday night, which, if you haven't done, I want to highly recommend. They call their food 5-star. And they have a wonderful camaraderie there, and they're going to install it for us.
Oh, wow.
It's going to get delivered to them. They will check it, because if when the marker comes, if there's any problems with it, they send it back. They will install it. And then I think the commissioners would like to be there at a ribbon cutting, and the American Legion would talk a little bit about the background of it, and also listening to the people from Crown Colony who have some veterans there too. I think we'd probably want to invite that community as well. And I think it's very exciting. It takes 12 weeks for them once we order it. So I'm not sure which site Jamie's marker thing is going to do, but we just wanted to make sure it was okay that it would be on that lawn, on the front lawn, on the other side of our sign that says Town Hall. So that's it.
Thanks, congratulations.
Thank you. It's coming along.
From a safety standpoint, there's no issue putting it up there.
I don't believe that there's any obstruction of view coming out at that distance away. I saw where they were standing. He looked good.
Much better than the marker, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Public comment? Okay, let's go to discussion from the commission. I mean, this to me is well, I'll let somebody else lead it. Do we have anybody who's against it?
No, we have no objections. Being a veteran, I certainly have no
Yep.
objection.
So can we, I entertain a motion on the placement of the Blue Star Memorial, which I think would be I would leave it to the decision of Jamie and the Garden Club where exactly to put it.
Our recommended location right now, just for your information, is about halfway between the monument sign and the front driveway on the front lawn, just essentially
Right.
off the corner of the building. There seems to be a niche in there that it'll fit without interfering with town signs and things.
So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Seconds.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Great.
Okay, congratulations to the Garden Club. It's a really cool looking plaque. Okay, Tracy, Town Clerk Stevens confirmed the hiring of Kathy Gatewood as Assistant Town Clerk. Couldn't come at a better time for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. So the town currently has a vacancy for an assistant town clerk administrative assistant. After receipt and review of many application packages and several interviews, staff has chosen Kathy Gatewood to fill the position. All pre-employment background checks and processes have been completed, and Ms. Gatewood is ready to join the team. Ms. Gatewood comes to us with a background working as a receptionist in a law office and also has worked in retail management and performed work on a government contract. Most recently, she was a full-time student earning her Bachelor of Science in Management at Hodges University. Since earning her degree, she is eager to get back into the workforce. We believe Ms. Gatewood will be a great fit for our community, and we're excited to welcome her to our team at Town Hall. And in accordance with Section 4.04 of the Town Charter, staff recommends that the Town Commission provide confirmation of Kathy Gatewood for the position of Assistant Town Clerk, Administrative Assistant, to be hired immediately. And at this time, I would like to introduce Kathy to the Commission.
You want to say a few words, or? No? Okay. Okay, public comment? Nope, no public comment. Discussion among the commissioners? All right, somebody want to make a motion to move forward? And Tracy has put it in our book exactly how the motion should be made.
Oh, did you, where is that?
Read it on page tab 5.
All right, I'll make the motion as soon as I see it. I move to confirm the hiring of Kathy Gatewood as Assistant Town Clerk effective February 4th, 2019.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimous.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, agenda item 6, approve the contract with Place Planning and Design, Inc. for specialized consulting services to provide P&Z review. And this is Manager Titcomb.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a unique pass-through item. Currently, as we are ramping up the concept plan review and various site plan procedures that our town Planning and Zoning Board go through in order to vet out projects that are proposed, which include 50% plus and higher rebuilds or complete builds in the town. There is a requirement that those plan sets, when they come in for a land development application and/or building permits, move through particular steps in our system. One of those steps is confirmation of meeting and/or exceeding all zoning codes within the town, as well as drainage reviews, as well as our certified building official looks at building code and other aspects in relationship to the town. The town is currently contracted with a planner for the purpose of comprehensive plan updates and other factors related to that. This particular proposal, which is in your backup, which includes a professional services agreement and the proposal from the planner firm that we have selected to consider, is before you this evening. Under the enterprise zone construct of the building department, these kinds of reviews of plan sets and permit applications and land development applications are considered pass-through to the applicant, so they're like a service, a user fee to those that are actually going through the process. So while this will pass through the town's billing, the majority of the expense of this will be absorbed by land development applications and building permits as they move through the system. I'd be happy to answer any questions. There was one typo, is corrected on a sheet handed out to you, a cut and paste typo. But the gentleman, the firm's resume, their insurance liabilities, and the attorney's version of the agreement are all in your backup today, and we look for approval to authorize this additional contractual service. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Public comment, is Mark Marsh still here? P&Z? Somebody from P&Z?
Jerry
Yeah,
King's here.
Jerry, there we go.
Jerry Garay, 130 Island Drive. As chairman of P&Z, I think it would be very helpful to have another set of professional thinking and opinion regarding the plethora of plans that have been coming before us. And I think it would complement the great job that Wayne has been doing. And it would be good to have somebody who is in a unrelated, unbiased position to come and share his opinion. Thank you.
Jamie, is there any idea of how much more it would cost the homeowner or the home builder than currently? Because some of this stuff was out-serviced already, right?
Well, some of the fees that would cover these functions are already built into the permit fees for applying for the various permits or land development applications. I believe this particular planner is going to work off a rate card rate, but typically I think we're looking at about 2 hours, Tracy, did he say, for plan set reviews?
So 145 times 2, basically $300.
Roughly. Obviously, larger, more complex projects will take a little more time to review. Simple, straightforward projects would take less. The difference here from what we've been doing, and we already account for some of this in our contractual agreements with our backup planners and inspectors, et cetera, is that this would be a credentialed planner giving a uniformly reviewed and presented report on zoning issues and assuring that every aspect of a project is truly vetted to our zoning codes and the nuances of our code before the Planning and Zoning Board would be required to make a decision, make a approval decision on it. It's a tool that will help your advisory board, help you, and certainly help the town to reduce the number of redos, if you will, when sometimes those shots aren't called 100%
Which will then save the homeowner some money. And the other thing, I don't know how many people saw the contract, there's a 10-day walkout if either side doesn't like what's happening. So we'd rely upon P&Z to alert us to that, obviously. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, commissioner discussion? All right, do I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Place Planning and Design, effective, when will it become effective, Jamie?
Immediately upon execution. It's a per application service, so it'll just start as soon as we get it all codified.
Okay, immediately, as soon as the contract is codified and we begin moving forward with the estimates on or the evaluations of the town, of the homes. So.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Everybody was buck? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Town Attorney Brian Shute. Item number 7, second reading of ordinance number 2019-01.
Let me just read the title of the ordinance first. Second reading of ordinance number 2019-01, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its code of ordinances by amending Chapter 67, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Coastal Construction, and section 67-17 coastal construction and excavation setback line to provide that zoning confirmation approvals shall be issued by the building official and not the town commission, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
And this ordinance, you approved this on first reading at your January meeting, and this proposed ordinance would provide that the zoning confirmation that currently in the code has that coming to you all for a vote, would then be performed by the building official after he looks at the zoning requirements of the town code and determines that the structure, such as they're requesting to build a single-family home, it's in a single-family zoning district, that would be sufficient, and it could be placed there in the section that or in the place that they want to put it. That would go to the state saying, yes, the zoning is okay. Now, this in no way takes away from the fact that they would still have to comply with all of our codes, ordinances, building regulations, and everything like that. So this is just kind of something that it would take it from you all and it would go to the building official as it's more of kind of a perfunctory type of thing anyway, so.
Yep, any public comment? Commission discussion?
I had a question. I know that at the last meeting in January, we had talked about and reached consensus as a commission to look at additional code amendments potentially that could be developed, looking at these type of properties that were eastward of the CCCL. And I just don't know, did we send that on to P&Z? What's the status of that?
Well, yes, Tracy, if you
Yep.
want to.
The P&Z will be meeting on Monday, and there will be an item on the agenda for discussion on that, to open it up and to start the process.
Okay.
That'll be probably legal problems.
Okay.
Good luck, Brian.
I don't think so. Okay.
Okay.
I guess I'll just follow it up. I would prefer that until we send it to P&Z and actually see something, that we not codify this as an ordinance. I think it's putting the cart before the horse, but I'm only one vote.
But we can add that later. We can,
We
you know what I
can,
mean?
but you know what?
Right now, this comes to us and we have this 15-minute discussion that is meaningless, and then we say yes, and then it goes to the state, and then it comes back to the code enforcement. Yeah. So, we have a motion, a second?
Well,
Or did
she has a motion to go against it, so we have to vote.
I did have I'm not making a motion.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm just saying how I'm gonna vote.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we pass ordinance number 2019-01.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
All right. 4-1. Okay, item number 8 was struck. Item number 9, appoint alternate member of the Board of Adjustments to fill the vacancy of Robert Sloat, who we thank deeply for your work on the commission.
Thank you.
Okay, so there is currently a vacancy for an alternate member on the Board of Adjustment since Commissioner Sloat was appointed to the Town Commission. The Town Code states that any vacancy occurring shall be filled by the Town Commission within 60 days after the vacancy occurs. There was an announcement on the January Town Commission agenda for residents to submit a resume and letter of interest by this deadline of January 28th. And the application that we received was from Martin Vishalek, which was included in the Town Commission package for review. If the Town Commission decides to appoint Mr. Vishalek to fill the vacancy, it will be for a term to expire in April of this year. In April, which is the month that terms normally expire, there will be 3 vacancies on the board at that time. 1 regular seat, which is currently held by Hans Kahlert, and 2 alternate seats, 1 which is currently held by Kimberly Pompeo, and the seat that is currently vacant that we'd be filling today.
Okay. Public comment? Maybe we could hear from Martin.
Good evening, Martin Wieszelek, 5 Engel Drive. As I presented in the letter to you guys, I'd be happy to serve in that position to help the town make sure that we have the right vision that continues through this process. I think the Board of Adjustment is one of the rather important positions that needs to be preserved in this town because it deals directly with variances, and variances are the gateway basically to the town codes, and town codes being overwritten, and it requires a very fine line to draw between allowing something to pass and not allowing something to pass. So it is a rather important decision, and I would be happy to serve and make sure that the town is protected in all of its forms and ways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any discussion with the commissioners?
And I think Martin will make a great candidate.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know how many aware of this. During the discussion of 25% open space versus 35% open space in town, Martin was of great service to the commission as far as showing that some of what we thought was just incorrect. And he is a builder for 20-odd years, I guess, in real estate. Okay, do we have a motion which Tracy has outlined on item number 9 at the bottom?
Sure. I move to appoint Martin as an alternate member of the Board of Adjustments to fill the vacancy of Robert Sloat with the term ending April 2019.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I believe it carried unanimous. Congratulations, Martin.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10, community input on future garbage and recycling services. Maybe Jamie could bring everyone up to speed, and then I'll have something to add.
Sure, we brought this back one more time at the request of the mayor, just to make sure. We are in the process of developing the RFP for the garbage contract renewal, which comes up every 5 years. It has been renewed several times in the town, and to be compliant with all the latest Inspector General processes and making sure everything is copacetic with our contracts in town, we are going out to RFP or to full bid on the garbage contract again. This is a fairly involved process. It's thick, it goes out, it takes several months, it attracts big players, it's big ticket, and if you don't get it right, then it goes wrong. But the worst thing is you get all that done and you award the contract, and then you have the citizens go, well, wait a minute, I wanted to consider a different day, or why don't we have the big bright pink rollout garbage cans, or whatever service issue or modifications or improvements you might want to consider. Now is the time to say something about it, or forever hold your peace, so to speak, because once this train leaves the station, we will be on the path to select the next garbage provider, a waste services provider, which may very well be our existing provider, or it could be one of the other big companies that may bid on this project. So the mayor asked us to revisit it, make sure you have a chance to address it if there's anything significant. Just on that, we're not talking about they missed your house on one given day or something. We're talking about service routes, or whether you like mechanicized pickup versus what we do today, or days of the week, or all kinds of things. And each one of those things affect cost, affect availability, may even affect how the company provides the services. So that's the context in which this was brought forward for your review one more time. And with that, Mayor, whatever you'd like to
Well, let's
add.
let Terry speak, and then I'll throw in my 2 cents.
Actually, I noticed that they've been real nice lately, the drivers. Not that they're not nice. But that's one reason is that my wife gives them all the extra bananas from her banana plants, and they love them. They take them in the cab with them. But really, we wish they were quieter vehicles. It wakes up me in my nap and the dog also. But the other issue, and I don't know if you've explored it, have you explored the single container recycling? I know that this system here is a little different, but that would be really great. Where you put everything in the recycling, metal cans, paper, all in one container.
Yeah,
They do
commingled.
that down in Broward County.
There are provisions within this for companies to recommend specific service delivery models. We've spoke to our current provider, and they've talked about that issue. And there's also a trend in garbage companies or waste service companies in general to move towards mechanicized services. Those are the
Right.
things they pick up with the arm.
The truck actually picks it up, yeah.
Correct. There's also systems where they can tip it from the back. There are single stream systems for both waste and recycling, and they're going to a single stream truck on recycling. The trucks that you have seen out there that had the bins down the side for each subgroup, those are kind of going to backload single stream systems.
So are you asking for any of these
Those are all
or-
possibilities that
Okay.
would just evolve in the technology. If there is a push, call, or cry to go to all mechanical or whatever, then we need to know that so that we can configure that into the contract. Everything has a cost factor, pro and con to it.
The only other thing I noticed lately was that they're not using the clamshell most of the time.
They use
The
a
two
clam-
guys get out of the truck and they actually lift the yard debris into the back of the truck. It's a different truck than the garbage truck.
True.
Yeah.
And on small yard debris, they tend to hand load it. They use the clam truck for larger, heavy lifting. One of the provisions that I know the attorney's working on within the contract language itself, or the RFP language, is to specify the maximum age of equipment that can be brought into the town so that we're not victimized by, getting trucks that break down on our streets.
I like
or
that.
equipment that doesn't perform and therefore we miss whole sections of town. Or, there's always something, if something significantly has gone wrong in the normal everyday service as you know it, it's usually an equipment failure or a personnel issue of somebody not understanding the route or whatever. We're trying to eliminate all those issues.
I knew that he would have all the answers. It took him a while, but he got them all out. Thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Any other, yep, Martin? No problem.
I noticed, because we had a lot of wind lately, I noticed that on the recycling day, the paper bins tend to fly paper out, and when they pick them up, one or two leaves fall out, and then they roll down the street. They don't run after them, and really we shouldn't be asking them to run after them. So that combined system is something that is really a fantastic thing. However, I would get in touch with Lake Worth, because Lake Worth used to have it. They had the combined bins, and they just went back.
Do you know why?
2 months ago. I don't know why. And they come back with the bins for whatever reason, but I'm sure that is something that Lake Worth would be able to.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Mike?
In 2014, at age 62, I got my third BA in civil engineering, and one of the things they do is at FAU is you take a lot of field trips. So I took a 4-hour trip through the recycling plant up at the Solid Waste Authority, and they specifically discussed 2 bins versus 1 bin. And the reason there's 2 bins is because what happens is the glass breaks if you got the paper, and then once it does that, the price of recycling paper drops like 90%, and you can't really recycle it, so it ends up being landfill, burned and landfilled. So if you have 2 bins, then you can resell the newspaper and other papers. But if it's combined, then it ends up being trashed. So that's why Palm Beach County went to 2 bins versus Broward County 1 bin.
Thank you. Good information. Okay, so, yes.
While Betty's coming up, if I can just mention, the attorney, another piece that the attorney is working into the RFP documents is a schedule of potential fines or fees for service interruptions.
For
I guess,
non-service.
Or for non-service and things of that nature.
Betty Bingham, 1 East Ocean Avenue. I was wondering if you would like to have a forum and let the different providers talk to the citizens, because some of the providers are really bad. And this is a project that I worked on both in Lantana and here. I think our providers now make mistakes. I think they're good. I think they need to be jacked up. I think the citizens need to, when they're putting out their cuttings, et cetera, make it more compact. We should have rules that say you can only put 6 by 6 out. I think we used to have those rules. Now sometimes it's 10 feet high and 10 feet wide. And because their contracts are based on amount that they expect to transport all the time, I think probably we need to pin all that down.
So Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, and then maybe I'll start the commission discussion. We're going to put this RFP out, and then we're going to get various providers coming back, and in their proposals, they'll be answering Betty's questions, basically. They'll tell us what they'll
I
provide.
believe so, and you might want to let the attorney weigh in on this because he's crafting the documents that would specify such things.
Right, the reason that we're trying to kind of ask the questions now is so that we can put the requirements in the RFP itself, and so that way the vendors will have to, when we say, look, you can't have equipment more than 5 years old. These are the days that you have to pick up the garbage. These are the days you have to pick up the veg. These are the days you have to pick up recycling. We put all of that in the RFP document itself, so that way they know this is what they're all bidding on, that they aren't going to come back with a bid that says, well, if we can pick up on, let's say, Wednesday and Saturday, it's going to be this amount, but if we pick up on Monday, Thursday, it's going to be this amount, where we're going to have to look at, possibly making decisions. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it seems like that in the past, it kind of, if you know what you want, then I think you may get a better product of, okay, this is what we want, here you go. Now, if you're just looking for something that, okay, let's just put it out there and leave it open and see what they come back with, and let's try to get the best price, you can certainly do that as well.
The
but
former, but I'm
okay.
assuming they'll come back with their own tweaks. So I did an informal survey of probably 30 residents, and no one wanted the days changed, no one wanted the methodology changed. The idea of the mechanical one isn't the huge, great big Boynton things. It's actually two sizes, 65-gallon versus 95-gallon. So that might come into play if Republic actually says they want to provide the service that way, but we're going to request it as we currently have it and add in penalties and, what was the other thing we're adding in?
Well, we're adding in penalties if they miss routes and different things of that. And then the equipment and personnel will add requirements on those two things as well. Now, going to some of the questions as far as currently, right now, in your franchise agreement with Republic, there's not a restriction on how much veg they pick up. There are some franchise agreements out there that talk about, you can only put out, say, 3 feet by 3 feet or no more than 6 cubic yards on a day. I'm not recommending that you do something like that. I think it's nice that you have it open, but once again, that's kind of a decision.
Well, hopefully we can keep it as is.
Yes, and that's the road I'm going down unless I hear something different. And so that was kind of the reason also to get this in front of you all in the public to see, is there anything that you want changed differently from what you have? Otherwise, we will be preparing it in essentially the same manner that, to reflect your current collection practices.
Okay. Okay, so any other commission discussion points on this?
Yeah, I wanted a clarification. When you asked the residents that they didn't want the days changed?
They don't want, no one wants the
But
days
did-
changed.
Okay, but did you say, what if we get a 25% discount because everybody wants it Tuesday and Friday, and if you can move it Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday, you get a 25% discount, because if all the trucks are going the same time, the same day, that's when they've got more trucks they need. But if you go a day that nobody else wants to use.
I do know one thing, if we go to Monday, it's more expensive.
Oh, okay, Monday.
Wednesday, I think, like a Wednesday, Saturday type of thing is the cheapest because it's more inconvenient, I believe, because normally veg is the first pickup day, so it would be Wednesday before people would actually be, being able to put out their vegetation, so.
Well, let's poll. If you can get 25%, would you want to go Wednesday? Was it Wednesday, Saturday you'll get a
I
big
think,
discount?
that's probably an option.
Is then
I don't want to be impeached, so, okay, I get it.
Who wants everything on Saturday? Another big truck on your street.
So the way we're leaving this is we're gonna leave the days the same, and the method that you get your trash to the curb will remain the same until further notice. And that's a 5-year deal, I believe, right?
Well, it'll be a 5-year deal with a 5-year renewal is the way I'm thinking about setting it up. That's the way your current agreement is, and I guess the other question is,
Non-automatic renewal.
no, it's not an automatic renewal. No, it's up to you all if you want to renew. The other question, or I guess the other comment is in a lot of the other agreements that I see out there and that I've done, more companies are going more mechanized because I think just liability purposes and it's fewer workers and things of that nature. And I don't know if there is any thought, right now, once again, I'm not going to plan on changing anything, but there was a question whether or not you wanted to go to roll out carts and have requiring containerized service versus the way you currently do it now.
My informal survey, people have their own method, and they just want to stick with their own method, whether it's a broken up trash can or it's a more high-tech one. Everyone just wanted to keep doing what they're doing. Okay.
It's too bad that everybody from Crown Colony left, because the only question that I would have is, particularly during season, are we providing enough pickup for the multifamily units? And I don't know.
They didn't come,
They-
Colonial Ridge and Crown Colony did not bring that to my attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a consensus to have Brian make no changes, basically, other than the additions, the penalty?
Right, just update it.
Mechanics, just
Yes.
update it
Okay.
to the contract.
Sure.
That's a yes? We got
Yes.
5
Yep.
yeses? Okay. So we have consensus, Tracy.
Okay, thank you.
Agenda item 11, resolution number 2019-01. Can it be 2019-01? Didn't we already use that?
Yes, we have ordinance.
Oh, there you go,
And
okay.
then resolution.
Adopting Town Commission Rules of Order and Procedure. This came up last meeting, we made some tweaks, and this is the tweaked version. And this is Jamie.
Well, you just covered it, Mayor, thank you. This was before you last month. You requested some changes. Those changes requested at that time are reflected in the strike-through and underline on the document in your backup. These are basic rules of procedure and order for the commission, so this is self-imposed to clarify things that you might do when you run your meetings and take various actions. In individual conversations with the various elected officials about this, several of you had ideas for additional things you might want to see along the way. And I would just remind you that this document, A, it's self-imposed, and B, it's passed by resolution, so that if you would like to amend it or update it or change it at any time, that can be accomplished at one commission meeting if you want to change the rules of the road, so to speak.
Right, and there's also this great 11.1, which we can temporarily set aside any rule we want at any meeting. So,
Yeah.
Right. There are exceptions within your own rules here to your rules, so.
Okay, public comment?
Terry Brown, you are probably aware that there's a Senate bill being proposed to regulate these types of activities all over the state and in every municipality in terms of public comment and the time that you give people to speak and for what, and how much notice you have to give them for the meetings. And the thing I noticed in yours is, and I didn't note this last week, is that you want to be able to do an emergency, although you don't call it an emergency, with less than 12 hours notice. That's on page 1, right?
Yep.
Well, this proposed piece of legislation would require 24-hour notice.
They will have to change it.
So you'd have to change it. And
The reason we wanted the 12 hours is in case we had a real.
I know. I knew the reason why, but the thing that brought this up is, how would you, other than the folks who are good enough to register on the email blast and actually pay attention to their email and the kiosks that you post things on, how on earth would you get to know, the citizens get to know that you have a meeting in 10, 12 hours? How would you post it? Would you have the police officers go into certain neighborhoods and say, hey, there's an emergency meeting in 12 hours? I mean, it really seems like that's too short a time, and there's no practical way in which you could notify people. I know that the people from Crown County got here from Mr. Magruder. But you see what I'm saying? So you have to find a way to post it some other way. Big sign in front of the town hall, special meeting, those yard signs that people put up, something to that effect, so that when someone driving by, they see there's a meeting.
The sign in the front yard isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
Signage is
We
not
also
easy.
have a Facebook and a Twitter and an Instagram.
Yeah, I know.
But,
But officially, the agency needs to make the notice. So-
one of your ideas, and it has just started up, and maybe the chief can speak to this, they're starting to do it in Gulfstream. I think it's something called Code Red, and it is a text notification program that we might want.
Robocall thing.
Yeah, that we might want to consider looking into to just,
Well, we should have
justify
that
exactly what you-
already anyway for hurricane emergencies and other situations.
We have access to an emergency notification network through the county. It's not available to use for meeting announcements and
Is that
things like
right?
that. It's very regulated because the county pays for it, and it deals with emergency operations for disaster type things, and very specific crime and missing persons, things you'll see in the news. Code Red is a wonderful program. We have looked at it. There is a cost associated with it. If you'd like me to explore that further, I'd be more than happy to.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention, because this says Town Commission Rules of Order and Procedure, but nowhere in this document, and I know I've brought this up before, is there any mention of the open nomination process for officers, mayor, vice mayor, when you vote? In my opinion, if you read Robert's rules, the nomination process should be open. It doesn't get closed by someone yelling out second as soon as they hear the first name. I wish you would study that and look into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, any commission discussion on this?
Somebody else.
Look,
Polly Joe at 35 Hersey Drive. I don't know what 12-hour notification you're talking about, but in the charter, if the referendums go through, we went on a 24-hour notice.
right, this was an
So-
exceptional emergency. So why don't we just, Brian, if the state changes or the charter changes, you'll tell us to change this sentence. How's that?
I think if come March, if the charter amendments go through and they pass, you will probably see some changes in our ordinances, some changes in this, and and a few other tweaks that we will need to make in some other places as well. But this would be one that we would need to move from 12 to 24.
Right, because we did 24 unless there's an immediate threat to public health, safety,
Yes.
or welfare.
Right. So the way this reads is arises necessitating immediate action and judgment. So if we eclipse, if the charter goes through, this will be 24, and the only way we'd
Maybe we could
eclipse
use
that
the
is the
same
police
language.
chief.
We use the same language that's in the charter. What did you just read, Polly?
It says, if it goes through, it had said 12 hours. We changed it to 24 hours notice to each member and the public unless there is an immediate threat to the public health, safety, or welfare.
So if we use the immediate threat to public health, safety, and welfare, it would cover us. It would no longer be in conflict.
You mean just throw that in front of 12 hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you're going to do that, I would suggest let's change it to 24 hours under 3.1. Let's go ahead and make that change now. Rather than the 12, let's move it to 24.
Why wouldn't you just add the
That's
language
not-
that allows the exception?
Well, we can, but it was based on the 24-hour notice was the initial notice, and so now we have 12 hours initial notice. So I'm just saying, be consistent. So let's move that to 24, and then the other language, as far as the exception, we would also put that in here as well.
Okay, so both would be.
Yes,
okay.
yes. That would be,
You're losing me. So 24 under 3.1, 3.2 would stay at 12, but throw in the 3.
no, 3.2 would change to the language that mirrors the charter language, which says that unless there is an exception, for an exceptions where there's an immediate threat to whatever that language was, then it would be less than 24 hours notice.
Okay. So,
I have one more comment. I just had the pleasure of going to the official elected something up in Jacksonville.
Institute of Elected Municipal Officials
Thank you.
graduate.
Thank you, yes, up in Jacksonville, and actually
Emo.
it was 48, almost 96 hours of training. It was very interesting, and one of the things that we talked a lot about was rules and procedures, and I don't want to hold up today's, so I'd like to go ahead and get this done. But I thought of you, Mayor. One of the rules that seemed to be prevalent with most of the municipalities, particularly larger ones, was they had a time limit to their meetings. So I thought of you, and I thought maybe in the future you might want to consider looking at something like that.
I've had discussions with Jamie, the police chief, Tracy, about this very subject. I didn't want to institute it before the elections, but yes, there are 3 things we can do to shorten the meetings. The meetings used to be, max 2.5 hours? Suddenly they've leapt to almost 4 hours, so.
But I would like to, if there's no further discussion, go ahead and move that we, do we need
Yeah, make the motion.
a motion?
Yes.
on this?
Yes.
A motion to pass resolution 2019-01, adopting town commission rules of order and procedure.
As amended.
As amended.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Was that unanimous? Unanimous, Tracy. Okay, set the date for the September regular town commission by interim town manager Tracy.
Not yet.
Almost.
The regular town commission meeting date will fall on the Labor Day holiday this year in September. In the past, the commission has typically moved meetings that fall on a holiday to the following Monday. However, the meeting may be held on any date that the commission chooses. Staff recommends setting the date of Monday, September 9th for the regular town commission meeting, and that should not interfere with any of the county budget hearings, because typically those are held not on a Monday.
Okay. Any public comment? Commission discussion? Does the 9th work for everybody?
Yes.
Do we need a consensus? What do we need here, Tracy?
Motion, second, and vote.
All right, do I hear a motion on item number 12?
I'll make the motion to move the September meeting to September 9th, Monday, 6 PM.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries unanimous. Okay, town manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My written report is in your backup. It covers Beachway crossover renovations, which are in progress. And I've made a note there that our dune expert has recommended that we delay the actual plantings that we had approved by DEP to March 1st so that we don't run the risk of losing them because of weather and erosion issues. So that has been pushed back slightly. The crossover is open so that people can access it, but the design plan for it is as presented to you last month and approved by DEP. That's in the works. Last month, you asked us to consider, at the request of residents, a speed hump system for the Harbor Drive neighborhood. Public Works employees have been working on getting the quotes on that. We think it'll take about $3,000 to buy and install those temporary speed humps. We're already in process of obtaining that equipment. I did call it portable or movable. That's debatable how portable or movable it is. In other words, they do get tacked down to the street, nailed into the pavement, and that has created some concern with our pavers, but I just want you to be aware that the base costs of these might prove to be a little more expensive if we do end up moving them around, because we'll have to make street repairs if we pick them up and move them. But we're ready to move forward and do a pilot project on that in the neighborhood requested, and then see how that goes. You might remember, like we did a pilot project on Mid-Lane when we tried road closures. If that goes well and it proves effective, we can explore other locations as needed.
So when do you think they'd actually be installed?
Well, they're in the, we've obtained quotes, so we just, Wayne, have we actually ordered the parts yet, or they are?
Yeah, we're in the process of checking the availability and when they get delivered by, so.
So it's basically in process.
It'll happen in?
Hopefully by the next commission meeting.
Oh, cool, thank you.
Should be installed by then if all goes smoothly. Finally, you know, it is with mixed emotion and sadness. You all know that I'm moving on. I was approached and given the opportunity to go back and work on a town in the Wild West that I actually helped incorporate back in 2006. And for the first time, that town is looking to put a full-time in-house town manager and go to a local government model. And they reached out to me, and in my professional career, this is something that interests me. It's kind of some unfinished business that I can wrap my head around and try to make a difference. And in saying that, I also feel really confident that the team we built here in town has been fantastic. The players that we've brought to the table, everybody, the chief, the building official, the clerk, all the rank and file employees have been fantastic, and I think the town will be in good hands. So I appreciate the honor of serving the town of Ocean Ridge, and I'll be here for about another month or so to help you transition smoothly, and I won't be that far away, so
we'll visit you on the way to Lion
thank you
Country
for the time I've served you. I
Safari.
appreciate it.
You know he's gonna need to go to Panera every day, so we'll see.
There's a Panera 2.3 miles from my new office, just for the record, and a Starbucks. An interesting note, though, they're not going to give me a company car. They've offered to give me horseback riding lessons and a horse, so we'll see how that works out.
Good luck, and we'll chat with you next meeting as well.
Can we make some comments on the town manager's report?
Sure.
I would like to talk about, or just bring up the unintended consequences of the speed bumps, humps, or whatever you want to call them this is on South Harbor Drive. I think that's the only place that they're going. When they're, from what I understand, they're not the small little humps, they're somewhat larger, so they're going to be maybe a foot and a half or so wide. They do make noise when you go over them, and they are spiked through the asphalt, we just repaved that street about a year and a half ago. And they go through the street and into the underground, the sand of the gravel and whatnot that's built up. So if you on Harbor Drive decide that you don't like them for whatever reason, and you have them pulled up, then we have to fill those holes, and the problem is that at some point in time they're going to deteriorate the roadway. They could even deteriorate the roadway when the spikes are in, because the water that flows down Harbor Drive can get into those spikes and whatnot. So I just wanted to make sure that you all understood that when you drive your expensive cars over those, it's going to make noise, it's going to slow your car down, and it could possibly deteriorate the street, putting in potholes. And so you're going to have another problem with, if you want them removed later on, we're going to have pothole problems along Harbor Drive that we haven't had right now. So just a point of interest.
Too late. Harry.
I'm
sorry. No, can I come up and speak?
We'll make an exception.
Well, I live on Harbor Drive.
I know you
South. And there's been some neighbors who've been complaining about the speeding down there for quite a while, actually. But my question is, do we know on the map where you're gonna put them? You can't put them in tandem to driveways. So,
The simple answer is yes, we know on a map where they're gonna go. You might not like one of the locations from a noise
that's what I'm
perspective.
asking.
We don't let
Where's
garbage
the-
cans
where's
go
the
to
drawing?
right, or garbage.
Now, I wasn't the one that
West of
championed
you,
this
Terry.
idea, but I
Just
support it
west
because
of
they're my
you.
neighbors.
Just west of you would be the first location, and the second location would be approximately near Virginia Charlinsky's house, which I think is 35 or 38,
yeah,
if I
yeah.
remember correctly.
Yeah, so there will be two.
There's two because that's a prescription for controlling the problem.
But as
And
far
they
as-
have to be in close enough proximity to each other to prevent going over one, revving it up to get to the next one.
Well, I'm
so
just
they're-
thinking
they're
about people
paced.
going in and out of their driveways, so if you have tandem driveways, you can't put it in front of a driveway.
No, they would not be,
Yeah.
that all has to be taken into consideration. They
Yeah.
have to be so far away from a driveway and other infrastructure. Any drainage catch basin, things of that nature are all taken into consideration for placement.
I do believe that they will help slowing the traffic down. All these other problems,
Well, they remain to be seen.
yeah.
The other issue is with the cost. I believe the cost of one of these is, what, is it for both of them?
Well, we
That's
actually
about-
got this down. We found a good vendor that we can
Okay.
get the equipment for 2 installations at about $3,000 if my memory serves me correctly.
Okay.
For both portable humps.
And the big garbage trucks are not gonna rip them out of the,
No, they're compliant with,
Okay.
fire safety and garbage and things like that. It's important to point out that Harbor Drive South, the situation there has been exacerbated by construction builds and the fact that there aren't sidewalks and swales and various things that people have talked about over time. So that's why.
I think it's a good idea to try.
It's a temporary
Really.
approach versus
Yeah.
permanent,
You
till
got
we know that it will have a desired effect.
They can be painted yellow, bright yellow.
What's your
I believe
favorite
they're
color?
black and yellow. They're already pre-configured.
All right, good, thank you. Town attorney?
We'll get you the
No
whoopee
report.
cushion sound effect.
All right, police chief report?
Good evening. The monthly report for December is attached to my agenda item. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Just a heads up, next month you will see a different format. I know that over the years you have asked to reduce some of the colors. Our software vendor's new solution will facilitate that since he does not provide these types of reports without the specificity of what we want. You will be getting the same information on a different format. I would like to remind everybody that we are going to hold Coffee with a Cop in February on the 13th. It's a Wednesday from 7 to 9 o'clock in the morning here.
You didn't want to do it on Valentine's Day? It's a
No.
joke.
I hope that the town clerk and the building official will be present, as well as some of my staff, so that we can all be there if you have any individual questions as usual, anything that you wish to discuss, and we can help you understand some of the robocalls that everybody has been receiving from Social Security and the IRS. They don't call you, by the way, if they're legit. Another thing that I'd like to bring to your attention, consistently there's been questions about response times from Boynton Fire Rescue in these reports. And whenever it's brought to my attention, I go back and look at the individual calls and try and determine if in fact it's an entry error or if in fact we're receiving poor response times. So far, we have not been receiving completely out of the line response times. Every time I look at something, I find that someone didn't clock something correctly. There's an indication that it was slowed down because it was later calling as not an emergency. I've worked with the fire chief. I met with him last week. He continues to pledge that he will move resources closer to Ocean Ridge as he sees those response times coming. I have no reason to believe that that will change. The project downtown which will move the fire station back to a better location for us in this particular part of town, is a long-term project. They've pledged themselves to be done in a year and a half or 2 years. I hope they are. That's a big undertaking across the bridge. I would like to give everyone here some food for thought. I've been approached by more than one person in town to consider instituting an EMT program within the police department, which would be one level up of service that we provide. Lieutenant Jones is experienced with that. We have reached out to Boynton. We believe that we can possibly do that with their assistance without having to purchase an ambulance, which is the #1 requirement that would restrict us from doing something like that. With their support, their medical director, their chief, working in concert with us, much like we did with the Narcan program for opioid addiction. If you're interested in doing that, I would like to present that as soon as possible, at the latest as part of the budget process. I will tell you the sticker shock of it is approximately $125,000 to start. And that includes training and equipment for everyone in the organization. And so it would be a commitment from the town. I hear a lot about that throughout the town, so I thought you should hear about that from me today for something to mull over and consider as we go forward in the budget process. I know that the town clerk, acting town manager, is going to stress that I get my budget numbers to her quickly.
So maybe
So
you
I don't
can
want to surprise you.
put that in the tickler file for the budget meetings. All right. Thank you.
Any questions?
Chief, could you have between like 6:30 and probably 7:30, more patrol cars or a patrol car parked somewhere along A1A near Colonial Crown Colony? I walk the dog up there in the mornings, and, you know, they're coming through there like, they come around Woolbright and they take off towards Briney, and they're certainly going faster than the 35. And I think if we put a patrol car at one of those side streets or something to just try and slow them down a little bit or start passing out some tickets, it might help. But there's a number of residents that go from Crown Colony and whatnot over to the beach in the morning to take pictures of the sunrise and so on and so forth. So that's a fairly active time for them. And the traffic is heavy and it's fast.
6:30 to 7:30.
6:30 to 7:30 would be great if we just had a car out there for a while.
Absolutely.
I had one further thing. We touched on it earlier, and I don't think we ever looked at. You said that you're familiar with the Code Red program. I would like to just ask my fellow commissioners if we give him the opportunity to come back and educate us a little bit on it, both how it works, and if there is cost associated with it, because it might hit the budget side too.
There is a cost associated with it. It is done by telephone numbers and by geography. It allows us to determine a specific area of notification. The opt-in issue exists with Code Red just like it does anything else, because cell phone records, you have to give us your cell phone number for us to send you text, and you have to allow us to do that. I will get some preliminary cost from the vendor. In the past, it's been extremely expensive. I know the cost has gone down recently, but I'll speak to Gulfstream and I'll speak directly to the vendor. Hopefully have something for you next month.
Thanks. By the way, on the robocalls and marketing calls, I don't know if everyone's familiar with this app called Mr. Number. It's basically like the Facebook for stopping marketing. So if you get a phone call, Mr. Number will tell you if it's a known telemarketer, or if you get the call and answer it, and then you report it to Mr. Number, which is a one-finger method, then that's in their bank. And my marketing robocalls dropped by 90% within 1 week. So it's Mr. Number. It's a free app. It's very easy to use, extremely easy. It's just punch in your computer Mr. Number and read about it. If you get a robocall, it'll tell you it's a robocall, or you can set it to block known robocalls, and they never come in.
I'll tell you what, as part of the newsletter this month, I'll do a little research on that, because I wasn't aware of that specific app. See if there's any catches to it, and if it's something that looks really good that we can put out, I'll put it in the newsletter so that it's It's going
Yeah,
out by email
cool.
so that there's something that you can refer to and have reference.
Okay, super. Okay, building official?
The December report's in your docket binders. I just want to thank the residents who are calling in, asking questions about permits before they actually do start projects. I really appreciate those calls. We've seen, from my mention at the last two meetings, we have gotten a little more people calling in, asking questions. So again, thank you for calling in. We're here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
I see where you followed up on, I guess it's Terry Brown's suggestion at the last meeting where you listed two properties where there was some length going on with the building permits and whatnot that for some lengthy period of time. But there's also one on Exora Way on the north side. I'm not sure what the address is, but it's got blue tarp on the roof for probably 2 months. And I don't know what the situation is on that one, but I didn't see an explanation if you know what's going on there.
We'll look into it.
You'll look into it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I interrupt? I forgot something.
Yes.
I wanted to bring to your attention a success story with our LPR. My lieutenant texted me to remind me, that's why he didn't. Last week, Gulfstream Police Department called us and asked for our assistance because they had just had several $1,000s worth of equipment on a trailer stolen from in front of Gulfstream School. We were able to find their equipment leaving the town of Ocean Ridge over Woolbright at about, I believe it was 4:21 p.m. to be exact. It was attached to a truck. Not the owners of the equipment's truck, I might add. We decided to go further, and Lieutenant Jones and Sergeant Ermery took it upon themselves to do some review and see if we couldn't determine that truck and who it belonged to, since the tag was being blocked. They were able to determine that the gentleman hooked up the trailer in Gulfstream and then drove to the south end of our town and pulled over directly under our license plate camera and got out and looked at our license plate camera so we could get a clear picture of him also. We still didn't have a tag, so we didn't know who he was. Within about 30 minutes of the call from Gulfstream and some intense review of every camera in town, the lieutenant and the sergeant were able to determine the make and model of the truck, compare it to images coming into town, get the tag number off the truck, within an hour locate the truck for Gulfstream and provide them with suspect information, and which ultimately led to identification of the driver of the truck, which was borrowed from someone for the purpose of committing crimes. That truck and that driver have now become a great interest to Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, because apparently that's what this gentleman does for a living, is goes out, borrows somebody's car and steals somebody's equipment. And so they hadn't been able to get that. So I just wanted to say that it doesn't sound like a lot, but there is absolutely no way that Gulfstream would have been able to solve this crime without the use of that technology.
Send him a bill.
Here's the kicker. My lieutenant can't leave well enough alone and does his stuff at night at home, I think. I've told him to stop. So he decided to find out what the nexus to Ocean Ridge was. And it was clear that that individual had come into town over a 5-hour period, in and out, in that same truck, all day long, driving up and down side streets based upon how many times he came and went. So there's no doubt in our mind that we were lucky that a resident or a person here was not a victim of a crime. And we're very thankful that because it's our neighbors to the south, we were able to resolve that issue as quickly as possible. So everybody asked me if it's working.
It is.
And I have been very quiet about it. It has been working for some time, and there's your proof that it actually
Thank
works
you.
for us.
That's great news. Okay, the final agenda item, Palm Beach County Coastal Resilience Partnership update, Vice Mayor Magruder.
Well, I put a page-and-a-half memo in your booklets. I hope that you've all had an opportunity to read them. I don't know if you have any questions. I see you have some circled.
Yeah, yeah.
If you'd like to ask the questions, go ahead, that'll help.
Yeah, it's a $72,000 grant being given to the 3 or 4 communities along the barrier islands here.
Right.
Which doesn't cost us anything. And then, are we expected to do matching funds in June of 2019 when those funds expire? Or can we just make the decision then whether or not we want to do it?
The $72,000 grant was initiated by 7 communities, and it's been approved, and it goes through basically Boynton. But what that is doing is it's paying for a pre-vulnerability study, the creation of an RFP. And it also includes volunteer work by Harvard University. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But I went to a meeting today that lasted about 4 hours with we now have 10 communities in that. We've been able to get Gulfstream involved, Briny Breeze is involved. We're still, the only one that's still waiting on is Manalapan. But what this study will do is it will gather all of the information from those 10 communities that is very similar as far as being vulnerable.
Right, I understand. So, in other words, it doesn't cost us a penny. We joined the group, the state's funded it, and then after the report comes back, then we have to make a decision of whether or not we want to spend any money on this.
Well, part of what Harvard is doing is, once we get the criteria for the RFP put together, then we will have an idea of what that's going to cost each community.
Right.
And we put in for a $75,000 grant that could be shared in 2020 that will offset the cost to Ocean Ridge.
So there's no downside to this? We don't have to...
There's no downside to this at this point in time. I spoke with Jamie and Wayne prior to the meeting tonight, and we are going to meet with the person from this committee that's going to do the GIS data, and we're going to meet next Tuesday, not tomorrow, but the following week, with Lisa Trepepi, and we'll go through all of the mapping on that. So it's fairly involved, but it's also very interesting, and I think on the long term, it's going to be very helpful for us. But that's one of the things, well, it's free at this point, but what we need to do after the elections is to get together when we start on the budget. Hopefully, we will have the numbers that it's going to cost us to do the vulnerability study by that time. And so then we can decide, you know, where that money is going to come from, how much of the $75,000 will be allocated to Ocean Ridge, and so on and so forth.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're working on.
All right.
I'd just like to thank Vice Mayor Magruder for the time and energy that he's invested. I have been to a couple of those symposiums, and it is daunting at best to be able to follow, and to get a grant out of it is huge. And so while it is free to us, it has not been free to him, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, the comment is it's not rocket science, it's harder than that.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Yeah, you know what? It's kind of it. Kind of it. That's an hour. We didn't have.
Yes.